Hey guys, I hope you're doing great. This is the Creative Scene Podcast, Season 1, Episode gani Alex?
Episode 3.
Episode 3 or 4?
Episode 3.
Episode 3. Thank you for staying with us. We are happy you're joining us. We are happy that you're here to learn from the guests that we're going to be bringing in within our podcast. Alex, it's been a whole week since we recorded. Umekuaje?
Mimi nimekuwa poa despite maandamano. Yeah.
But we met actually during the week, so there isn't much to catch up on. Maandamano liyopata huko kwa mama?
Kwetu hatuna mambo mengi. Tumetulia tu.
Alright, for me my week has been okay. Been up and down, meetings here and there, a bit of work. Generally I've been okay, at least joy imewaka this week. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Creative Scene Podcast, and we are happy to be having an amazing guest with us. Our guest is a creative designer. She is a visual identity designer. She's worked with renowned brands such as Amref and Rainforest Alliance. She's also a digital artist. She has also participated in exhibitions. She has participated in the African Identities exhibition that was held in Italy in 2022, and also a couple of local exhibitions that took place in Kenya. And we're really glad to have her here. This is our first female guest, and we're really happy to have her here. She's going to tell us a bit of her story, how she started up and how she got to where she is currently. So if you're into the brand identity design field, or you're into digital art, we're hoping that you'll learn from her. So our guest today is Hilda Mumbi. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We're really glad to have you. How has your week been?
I'm awake. Oh my God. First of all, let me just say the maandamano manze. Kotu akura stima since Wednesday, so it's not going good. But generally, in terms of work, it's been great. Yeah, it's just maandamano hailetisha ngwe, but apart from that, everything is great.
Everyone is mentioning maandamano. Look at this kumoja.
Yeah, but no, see, akura stima kwetu, so yeah.
Okay.
Ndio iko na impact kubwa sana.
Yeah.
It's great to know that you're doing great, and we're happy to have you here, and you're hoping we'll learn a bit from you, hoping from your story and the insights you'll share within brand identity design and digital art. We're hoping to learn a few things here and there. So thank you for being here. Maybe if you to start, maybe you can just tell us how you started out, how you got into the brand identity design field and digital art, and how you got to where you are right now.
Okay, so let me start with the brand identity. I got the interest of brand ideas back when I was in campus. I remember there was this girl called Vivian Kendi. We used to be in the same course, and she always kept on saying, "You guys should go watch The Future by Christo. You guys should go watch The Future." And then I kept on ignoring her. I was wondering what, Miss Kwana understand what she was saying. So one time I was like, okay, let me just go and see what this guy is about. So I remember I went and I watched Christo, and within the first years when he was beginning his podcast, which by the way you guys should also go and watch that channel, in case you are interested in the business of either brand identities.
I think most people in the brand identity field are really familiar with The Future and
yes.
Do.
Yeah, so he's the first person who kind of intrigued my interest. And I remember those podcasts that I used to watch, I know they were on YouTube. He was going through logos, and he was giving people maybe like a challenge to like develop them. So I started with that, and then I guess I became interested. So now I began to like kind of say no with my journey, kwa sababu I used to not like logos at all. So nikaanza hapo, and then nikaanza watch other channels about other designers design logos, and then it just came like naturally. So after that sasa nikajipata naingia into the logo scene. When it comes to the digital art, I remember it was a friend of mine called Will Not Think. At the time nilikuwa I wasn't at the place that I wanted to be in life, because at the time I was doing academic writing for like 4 years, and it got to a point where like I got nearly feel like I'm not going where like I want to be. This is not the end goal for me. So Will Not Think always used to come and he used to tell me, I've sold this amount of piece maybe for like this much, and he always kept on encouraging me. And the art, it's it has good money, and then you also kind of feel fulfilled. So I said one day, let me just try and do some art at random. Then I posted them on my WhatsApp and on Instagram, and then they had some really good feedback. And then within like the first 2 weeks, I sold my first artwork, an A3 framed artwork. And then after that, okay, I think this thing can make money. And also pia na feel ni kama niko na passion about it. So then that's how now I began my art journey. Yeah,
that's interesting. Will Not Think is a graffiti artist, or
Will Not Think is an amazing painter. He mostly works with canvas, but he's also done a couple of graffitis. He used to be at this studio. It was called Dust Depot. I don't know whether you know about Dust Depot, the one with the trains, and then they have painted on the trains. I've seen some people doing some music videos.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think I'm just familiar with him on social media, but I think he does, as you've mentioned, he does most of canvas art.
Yeah. And he's also, by the way, he was my art mentor. I think he still is. So I think you two could like chocha. I think also we also need friends when you want to push to like doing something. So for him, at first it was annoying, but eventually when I got told so much, I was like, let me just try this thing, even though I have no idea what I'm doing. So I just did a random thing that people just had some really good feedback. Yeah.
That's interesting. You mentioned that you're into brand identity design and digital art. So how do you fuse the two? How do you incorporate your digital artworks into brand identity?
Yeah, when I began my digital art, in fact, nilikuwa naona zikuwa very two different entities. But later on, after I began to do art, and then sasa maybe like a couple of months after doing my art, ndio I will say maybe the first project where I kind of fused my drawing skills in my design is a project that I did for Mama Rocks when I did their packaging, and I did that by customize the fonts. Like at the time I was doing sources, and I customized the letters because I wanted, even as you look at a package, even with the letters themselves, like they have a vibe. It's not just any other like a generic typeface. So that was the first thing enye nilianza nayo, and then eventually nikaanza ku bring that skills into maybe other packages. So you'll actually notice that most of my packages, they always have illustrations. It's either in a subtle way or maybe in like a huge way. So that's how I did that, and then even making like mascots for brands. So I would say I infuse more of art into my design, but I don't think I put my design into art because art is free, but I feel it's an added advantage for you to have drawing skills, and then you are able to give a client an extra package apart from just simple design thing package. Yeah.
So is there a way that the different types of fonts you use communicate emotionally, or the illustrations you use?
fonts.
Yes.
Yeah, I always try to go the extra mile, and I think every designer should actually do that. Even as you're making a logo, try to yes you'll get a font, but also try to also give it character. One channel that I will probably just put it out there for people to go and watch is a girl called Abiconic, and she does some really good way in customizing fonts. So I would say,
I've seen her work.
Sorry,
I've seen her work.
She's like really good. So that's one of the people who I look up to. So even as you're making maybe like a packaging, think about how can I make this font. If it's maybe something like a syrup, you can try to kind of make it a bit more curvy, other than just choosing a random font and just pasting it there. So always try to go an extra mile, even when you're doing logos or whether it's like a product design. Yeah.
So what you're saying is, when it comes to brand identity, it's really not about your design skills. It's about how you connect with your audience through the visuals you use, that is maybe logos, colors, illustrations. It's not about the design part of it. It's about the end goal. What are you communicating through the aspects that you're using, that is, the logos, as I mentioned, colors, typography.
Yeah, what I try to do is, as I'm doing my brand identities, I guess I always try to go the extra mile. So, like for example, you'll probably look at some of my work and you'll see there's some extra mascots that I have included. So what you want to do is for the client to be able to come back, or for them to be able to refer you to somebody else, try not to make it too generic, Even let's say when you get maybe a client who is like an adil, maybe a creative space, try to make the brand as fun as possible. So try to put illustrations there, just try to bring character into it, because that is what will make this brand to be different from the other brands that are out there. So it's the extra thing that you put there, and if it's the illustrations, then incorporate them in there.
So when it comes to brand identity design and packaging as well, what I was trying to understand is how, because when you come in as a designer, you're trying to solve a problem for the client.
Yeah.
So the client's main problem is maybe communicating with their target audience. So how do you go about that? How do you come up with solutions through design that can help the client, maybe in terms of reaching their audience, or in terms of maybe connecting with the audience? How do you do that through design?
Yeah, so the first thing is always like the research part. So if there's a certain audience that maybe are we trying to connect with children, or are we trying to connect with like maybe the youth? So the first thing is, first of all, to do a lot of research. It can either be on the ground. Another thing that you might also want to do is to go and look at other brands that are dealing with that kind of category before anything, or kabla utake up any project. The first thing is always to do your research. So do online research, also do the competitor research, also do even like on the ground research. Like maybe if it's something like packaging, go to like supermarkets, look at the products there, how are they done, so that by the time sasa you like now sit down to now do your own design, you have done research yake na umejua this is what these people like, this is the kind of colors that this type of audience likes. But that should be where you put your most attention to before you go out and draft anything, because that will guide your decision.
And from most of your artworks, you talk about conversations being avoided by the community, the society. Is there a thought process that you undergo so that you come up with an illustration to raise an issue being avoided by the community?
I will say yes. Like the way I see my art, it's like a kind of like an amplification of my thoughts. Like for example, let me just give an example of a recent project that I did last year in June. It was after I had lost my grandfather, and it was very painful. And I realized in that moment it was actually very hard for me to talk about it. And I was like, why is it so hard for me to talk about grief? And I felt like we are in a society where when the hard time comes, nobody is willing for you to express yourself. So that's what I based off my project from. Sometime like the previous year, I think in 2021, when it came in March, when we were March is always a month for women, and I was like, you know what, actually I don't think women have the same rights as men. So that's when I then did the I Cry series. So what I do is my art is kind of a reflection of my everyday thoughts. And I also feel like I don't want to confine myself. If like people don't talk about this, then I can't talk about a certain topic with my art. So it's kind of trying to like break the boundaries, at least with the people that are around me. Yeah,
that's amazing.
And from your artwork, is there how did you get to identify your specific style? How did you did you experiment with different styles until you settled for one, or what was the process?
Yeah, what had happened is I actually began art not in 2020. Okay, when I began seriously was in 2020. But then before that, in like around 2015, I had been drawing, and what I thought was the good type of art was like the realistic type of art. So back then I used to try my best to kind of do the lighting and the shading, and then that's when in the process I then came across Will Not Think. And for him, his art was actually his approach was a very different approach, because I had thought that the standards is it has to look like a picture. You have to really get the lighting and the shading well. So after interaction that's when my approach to art changed, because then once I saw venye alikuwa ana approach, his approach was your art just has to be different. It just has like to jump out to the crowd. So when I came back in 2020 after interaction and also doing a bit of my research, I was like, I'm not more of a realistic type of art. I'm more of like some, like I like to exaggerate my feet and my hands, and I was more comfortable with my art. So I just kind of owned it, and I owned my style. And so that's when now I came up with now this kind of new different style for like with like maybe a small head and maybe big feet. And big hands, and also it also keeps on evolving. Right now you'll also notice that some of my art is abstract, because at the time that's what I feel it will suit that kind of series that I'm working on. Sometimes I even go and hire out videographers or photographers, because for that kind of project I feel like that is what will fit in. I guess my point is for us not to feel like when we start with one kind of style, like it has like we have to stick by that. When you feel like you want to go and outsource another person so that you can fulfill your art project, just feel the freedom to just experiment and just do whatever you feel is right at the time.
Right.
Yeah,
that's interesting. You mentioned if you feel like you want to try to change your style or try out something different, you can outsource from others.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you do that, make sure you add a pinch of yourself in it. Not like just copy pasting from one designer and just replicating it exactly as it is. Yeah, I think that's also what I do when I'm working on artworks. I go to Pinterest, I find inspiration, I find a couple of things I like, then I try to combine them into something that I'm envisioning.
Yeah, there's usually that. And also if you feel like maybe you want to even make a game that you want to be your art, like you can just feel free, and maybe you like don't even have the skill set for that. You can own that art by being like a creative director for that art. So as long as you approach the person and as long as uko clear, like, this will be my project, but I want you to help me execute this, just be transparent, so that even collaborate na like other people, they know full well that you want this to be termed as your project, but you'll give them the credits at the end of the project. Yeah.
It's also good to give out credit. Usichuke tu job ya mtu and you term it as yours.
Yeah.
So wokovu and uovu was inspired by
Wokovu and oh my god, okay. Wokovu and uovu. I know that is a very controversial one because I was like calling out the church specifically, and it was kind of I always had that feeling, you know, like I'm not against the church, I'm just against the bad things that happen sometimes, maybe like taking advantage of citizens. So hiyo ni kitu enye I discovered in actually time ya corona, and then nikaanza kuona ma scandals za church, and then I digged deep into it, and I was like, you know what, I'm not sure if I want to be a Christian anymore because of all the scandals. But then I knew it's not the church itself, it's the vices that happen in the church. And you see, no, this is when I want to talk about things that people don't talk about, because I was like, you know, I think this is the perfect time for us to actually begin to talk about this, because so many bad things happen in church, but kids are too scared to like talk about it. And I feel like we should, if we want to make maybe the community a better place. So hiyo ni kitu yenye ilikuwa in my heart for such a long time, ni venye tu sasa nilifanya this year, but it has always been burning inside of me. Yeah,
I think people like Boniface Mwangi, their way of communicating issues or challenges going through within our society, they do it verbally, they do it expressively in front of people. But for people like us artists, we do it through our artworks. We try to communicate to people through our artworks, and I think you're doing an amazing thing, expressing yourself through art, and you can see it actually through your artworks. And I think you mentioned that you've also been part of a couple of exhibitions. Could you take us through exhibitions and how can people get into exhibitions, and what was your experience like?
Yeah, okay. In terms of how people can get, to be honest, sometimes you just have to apply. Like me, I've applied for so many exhibitions. Some of them I get accepted. Some of them they just don't go through, and that's just part of life. But as long as you always put yourself out there, I guess the largest one that I have taken part in was African Identities by Aka Project. So that one I took part in last year, and how I took part in it was actually very funny. Okay, not funny, but was just by chance. There was this person who was coming to a studio that at the time the owners will not think and at Solo Sana. So I had one of my artworks there, and he saw it and he liked it, and then he reached out, and then they were like, okay, if you want to take part in this exhibition, we would like for you to take part in it. Are you open to taking part in the exhibition? And I was like, yes. So that's how I took part in it. But for exhibitions, just apply. Just know not all of them will go through, but at the end of the day, it's always an 80-20%. If 20% of others go through, that's 200 exhibitions. So just apply for exhibitions.
You mentioned African Identities.
Yeah.
What was the experience like? Was it life-changing, or what was the experience?
I wouldn't say life-changing, to be honest. I wouldn't say life-changing, but I would say I felt humbled by just being recognized and by just somebody like believing in me that much. So that to me, it kind of just showed me like you're actually doing something and you should keep on like pushing on. So that's just what I took from it. Like as long as I keep on pushing on, I know that more opportunities will come.
I think most people don't really know how to get into the exhibition side of art.
Yeah.
Did it happen virtually or was it in person?
For us, what we did during that, we like shipped our artworks, and then the exhibition happened. But I feel like somebody should. I feel like we should not have too much pressure for like exhibiting, because at the end of the day, if today I came and like I set up my art in my one bedroom, and like I said, and like I invited people, then that will be an actual exhibition. I feel like we should not be too desperate to take part in galleries. Yes, we can apply, but let them not determine whether we are good or not. Let's call ourselves good, Let's just have confidence in our work.
Working with AMREF and rainforests, can you share some experiences you've learned from the brands?
Working with and also I just want to be clear that with AMREF I had worked with a company called GHS is Global Health. I forgot the that name. So it's GHS that I got to work with AMREF. So I also have to give them the credit for that part. I would say the first thing that I always keep in my mind whenever maybe it's a big company, it's kind of to say to myself, like, I'm the prize. In this way, you see, sometimes as creatives, especially when we have not worked with big brands, when we work with a big brand, we kind of get to have cold feet. Sometimes even when you talk to people, you kind of feel some kind of intimidation. So what I always keep in mind is there's a reason why you came to me. You came to me because you've seen my work and you know that I'm good. So even when I sit on a table, regardless of whether this is the CEO of 200 country company or whether this is the CEO of like a small company, I always want to have confidence, because if you don't do that, you'll kind of get overwhelmed and then you won't deliver. So just remember that you are the prize, regardless of whichever company that you're working with. Another thing also that I also learned through it is sometimes not all projects you can do alone. And then also you remember that sometimes when you get overwhelmed, just outsource. You might have a friend out there who maybe knows how to do a website, and then you have this big job that has come in and you want to take all the money alone. That's not nice, because a lot of times what will happen, you will get overwhelmed. First of all, you will under deliver, you will not hit the timelines, everything will go on so bad. So what I've learned also through it is just outsourcing, having a team where I can tell them if things get too overwhelming, I'm gonna reach out to you guys, and then I will pay you like what sasa umefanya. So just learn how to work with that team, and also keep also time. Also at the same time, always be transparent. If you're getting late, just communicate it, because most of the large companies they work on timelines. So if you're not able to hit the timelines, now how communicate? Then that will then make a problem.
So would you say there's a difference between working with big brands and smaller brands?
For me, no, because I try to. What I always aim is to always give respect to everybody. You see, right now, if I'm working in a shady way with like maybe a client mwenye labda the company is not as big, if that's how I'm used to working, and then a big company then in your approach, and then I say I will miraculously change with this project, most likely I will mess up.
True.
So the thing is, give every client their respect. You see, for me, even when it's somebody who I think maybe hatalipa pesa mingi, I always like to give them the respect. Kama kuna if there's like a certain like a process that I should go with, I try to give that process to the smaller person as to the bigger person. I think it's kind of what like the Bible. I don't know whether the Bible says this, but when kama unapatua a small task enye uko entrusted with, treat it well, so that even when a big thing comes in, like utakuwa na bado hiyo kind of like integrity to also push on what you've been doing. So just treat everybody in the same way and give them their respect.
I think you also mentioned that you're working solo, right?
Yeah.
So like that's like freelancing.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you get your clients? How did you get your first client actually?
Yeah.
And how did you progress into getting more clients?
Yeah, so when I started the first couple of years, of course, ilikuwa like 1-2. So at that time, I used to balance between academic writing and design, which by the way used to be very little. So where my career took off was in 2021. When I started my first month, I got at least 2 jobs that I didn't have to do writing, which I was so excited about. And then after that, people just kept on coming. Where I get most of my clients, it's from referrals. And how you get referrals, of course, first of all, is by doing a nice job. That is like, that one, you just have to do a nice job. And also by going over and above. Like, for example, if somebody comes to me and they want a brand ID, I will give them that. But if I notice that they want a website, I will also tell them, hey, I also have a friend who is doing websites. So if you would want to do this, let me link you up to this person. If maybe they want a printer, I connect them to that. If they want somebody for social media, I connect them to that. So what you do is, when you have this amount of knowledge, don't just say the client has come for this thing, and you won't help them like, even if like past that. If you have some people who they do good work, then like refer them to that. And sometimes if they want advice, then advise them. When you go over and above, chances are that they will come back, first of all, because they will be happy with the work. And next thing, most likely they will refer you. How I even got to Rainforest Alliance was through a referral with a client who I befriended. The goal is for you to have a client and for them to and for you to be their friend, because you are generous with information. So just always go over and above. Yeah, so and then also with like also put yourself out there in when I talk about like Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook, because then again you never know who might see your work and they might actually like it. Most of the people that I deal with, sometimes most of them don't put themselves out via Instagram, and that also works. So take advantage of the social media platforms, because somebody somewhere will see you and they will be able to reach out. Yeah.
Those some quite interesting marketing strategies. So let's switch this discussion a little bit. So in this evolving landscape of digital art, we have so many tools of where we come up with the digital art. Is there a way that it has influenced your way of working? Like right now we have so many tools of AI tools.
Yeah.
Have they affected your digital artwork?
Yeah, I would say, let me just be honest, that learning a new tool, I struggle with it, to be honest. But one way that I got to learn about new tools is by the way I work is I'm able to learn more in person. So if I see somebody that has like, maybe they know how to do websites and I have no idea, I will most likely get more if I reach out to somebody than if I do it myself. So I tend to associate myself with people that have information. So I'll be like, I'll say I'll go to somebody who I feel like they have the skills that I want, and I'll tell them like, I would like to learn about this. Can you help me to maybe learn about, like right now I'm a bit familiar with Webflow and with Figma, because nearly reached out to somebody who had that, like the skill set. But I'm not too keen on the tools, except when I need to learn a new tool, then I reach out to somebody. Because me, things like YouTube, I struggle with them. It is my resolution this year to be able to finally get the discipline to like sit down and watch them and learn them. But before I get to that, I like to associate myself with people that have information, because it's easier for me face to face than with like courses and YouTube. Yeah.
You mentioned you're familiar with Figma, familiar with Webflow.
Yeah.
So as a designer, would you advise people to be familiar with different fields within the graphic design industry. Like, would you advise someone to be a graphic designer, a web designer, a social media marketer? Would you advise people to know a bit of everything, or just specialize in one specific area?
Okay. I feel like let me see how to do. Okay, knowing the tools, it's always an advantage, you see, because let me just give you an example. There are some clients who can come to me and they say they want social media templates, but they have no idea on how to operate on Adobe, maybe Photoshop, or maybe Illustrator, but they're familiar with Canva. So it's an added advantage if you're familiar with different platforms. Somebody may not be familiar with Illustrator, but they might be familiar with Figma. So knowing the tools is an advantage. However, I'm not advising people to know bits and bits and bits of everything. Like for me, like for example, I specialize in logo design and brand identities, and then also with packaging. So what I've been doing, I've been focusing on that field. So you look at everything that's maybe associated with brand identities. You try to expound on it. Then you watch things like Chris Do or maybe other projects, so that you can know something about a specific project. If you're doing video editing, you specialize in your kabisa, and you become really good at that, because that's how big companies are going to see you. But if you know bits and bits of everything, lakini haujui deep knowledge about any of the field, nobody who is an executive will ever come to you, because you're not known that you are good for like any specific field. So yes, be familiar with tools, but chagua field moja, alafu tena sasa ufocus on it kabisa and be really good, because then that's how you're going not to charge a premium for that. Yeah.
This is a really interesting discussion. Alex, I think I'm learning a lot from this episode. It's really great to have you on this episode. This is the third episode of the Creative Scene podcast. Today we are really happy to have hosted an amazing artist, Hilda Mumbi. She is a brand identity designer and digital artist. She's worked with renowned brands, Amref and Rainforest Alliance. Yes, and she's also participated in exhibitions. So if this is something you're interested in, we're hoping that you'll learn something from it.
So as we wind up, is there any advice you could give to an upcoming digital artist?
I guess if it's like digital art, like just answer to like you're inakwanga the biggest challenge just to start. Even me, before I began my art, it took like 5 years before I finally put myself out there. So you'll never know what's on the other side unless uanze. Hata kama you have no idea, just answer to, because that's the biggest block towards your success. The same thing as design. If you feel like uko in a field and you're hauko passionate kabisa, yani how feel to your career, achana nayo. Like hata kama haujui venye kutaenda, I feel like taking that, or maybe answer kuachilia what you don't like and not begin to pursue what you feel like your heart leans towards. And then again, things like design, you need to do a lot of research. You need to watch a lot of YouTube videos, especially if you went to the Kenyan universities, because they don't give a lot of information. So do your own research. Go to YouTube, go to podcast, learn, because then that's how now you will be able to utajenga your career from learning, kujipatia just that extra push to be able to learn on your own.
I think creatives in this generation, we have so much opportunities, we have so much information just laying everywhere. There's digital platforms, there's so much information there, even for free. You can learn for free instead of going to schools. I think most creatives, the biggest challenge is putting themselves out there, like posting their work, because most of the times you have that, what's it called, syndrome?
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, we have imposter syndrome. It's really tough to post our work out there, because tunajijudge sana. But I think most opportunities sahi utazipata within the digital platform, so it's really great to put yourself out there. Hata kama ujiamini, just do it. You never know where it will lead you.
Yeah, and that's what I've been telling my friends. Now I always tell them, jichoche, unaona, unaweza kuwa like see like company kubwa lakini umechocha na uko nje manze, because that's how you get the clients. Otherwise, if you always play yourself down, which by the way some people I see posting their work with a laughing emoji, there's nothing to laugh about. You're a serious person, you know, like chocha watu uko nje, that's how you'll get the work. But if you always doubt hata kama you doubt yourself, like na uko nje, ka like uko like you are the star, you know, and then when you go at home cry your heart out. But while you are in the public space, just, you know, like look professional, look like you have all the confidence in the world, and just put yourself out there.
Anyways, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for watching this episode. If you reached to the end, we were really happy to have you, Hilda Mumbi. I think I've learned a lot. I'm sure people watching, Alex Naju.
Learn mingi sana.
There's so much to learn from her. I think 1 hour is really short, honestly, because I feel like I still have more questions. I feel like there's so much you can offer. There's so much information or education that you have. We also have this amazing screen up hivi nyuma. If you want to advertise anything, you can advertise with us. Thank you for watching. I've been your host, Atatu Kujintroduce. I've been your host, Bridget.
And I'm your host, Alex.
And this was Hilda. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your insights, your journey, the knowledge that you have. I'm sure our audience was glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me too. It's an honor, and also it's great to see a young brand like, you know, like yo sasa kuwaza sasa. So this is what we are talking about, like answer to. So it's great to see you guys doing something. And I'll be looking forward to the episode. Also, if you want to follow me at Hilda Mumbi on IG.
Yeah, she has amazing artworks, so make sure you check her out. Bye.